Hello, unconventional founders, and welcome to The Founder's Truth, a conversation with Carlo Mahfouz and guests. Episode 9 welcomes Dr. Cornelia Kawann, electrical engineer, executive, and personal energy strategist, as we explore where founders really hemorrhage energy, the missing ingredient in teams that actually trust each other, and why authenticity makes the biggest difference.
Welcome to this podcast. I'm very excited. I'm Dr. Cornelia Kawann, and I work with personal energy and energetic leadership, meaning how we lead, how we decide, communicate, and create results without burning ourselves out. And today I am speaking with Carlo Mahfouz, the author of Reality Check. And I had the chance to read this book, and in a way, it's all about asking the right questions. And now you're working on a trilogy for founders, and this book should be part of it, but we come to this later. And if I understand the concept right, it's all about how you think we should think about leadership, culture, and the work, the way we are building our world, and also how we integrate technology into that. So I'm really looking forward to this, Carlo. I'm happy to be here with you. Yes, and so starting with the first question, I would like to know, how is your energy today?
Oh my God, my energy has been fluctuating all day between high and low and high again. So it's been a whirlwind and now it's quite high. I really loved your introduction and I'm excited to get this conversation going.
Yeah, me too. So why was the, like all these ups and downs? What happened?
I think, different kinds of conversations bring shift energy across the day. Certain set of expectations that you either see coming or you don't see coming kind of play a role. And you realize how fleeting most of the energy is in a certain way, how it comes in waves and changes. I'm usually back to back every day. So that today was no different. And every conversation brought a different type of dynamic. Not necessarily in a positive or negative sense, but not with a different, I would say, enthusiasm and excitement. Some build it up, some kind of diminished it. So it was really a little bit, as I said, a whirlwind. At least that's how I can feel it. It's like a wave, kind of. It crashed and then a new wave is coming.
Wow, I think you described it very well. And actually, this is, what I would like to dive in a little bit deeper. In a way, if you look at your first book, The Reality Check, right? And of course, it's asking about the right or the correct questions, but it's also about distractions in a way. And this, of course, distractions has a lot to do with our energy.
Yeah.
So, now from your experience and from your work, what do you think is are like these common energy leaks you see in founders?
I think probably is a little bit the pressure that is put on them on a certain set of expectations on how they need to be and what the realities are and how they need to deliver against it. I think that is a major distraction and an energy leak on its own. I do believe the realities as they present themselves have a lot of opportunity, even if in the moment they do sound negative. And getting out of this stereotypical or kind of pre-configured notion of what a founder should be, whether it's regarding, it's the self-made version, it's you against the world alone into this journey, or even what success looks like and how long does it take, or how quick and fast and how efficient you need to be, and all of these type of optimizations that honestly 90% of the time lead to more burnout rather than actually lead to something more efficient and effective in the delivery. So I feel it kind of plays out on all of these factors more so and not. Yeah.
So, and what would you recommend to how to deal with these energy leaks or how to mitigate them?
I believe a great way is to not try to push them back in a way, but recognizing them as a first step. I think the part of recognition is always, uh, it sounds a very simple thing, but I think it has a lot of ramifications down the line, and understanding that that's something impacting you, that that's a something holding you from a bias or from a, a validation or a judgment, preconceived judgment. I think understanding that relationship you have with these, if you want, like thoughts or mindsets or expectations, I think is a great starting point. And I think by understanding that relationship, you're able to be no longer, that relation no longer have the same kind of power over you. So you can reclaim kind of some of that power that relationship defined previously. Um, and that sometimes requires you sitting with the uncertainty, sitting with the level of like unknown or discomfort that it creates without trying necessarily to fix it. Because I think if fixing it is as well another energy distraction of its own, if we want to frame it in that context, and this specifically. And I think that's very hard to do because we've optimized the society as all as in majority has optimized towards like, okay, fixing problems, fine, fix, like, right. This kind of has been extremely ingrained in how we, how we grew up, and then the expectations from career and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. And when you look back now to the Carlo, let's say 3 years ago, before you even started writing your book, and the Carlo now, after all, after your book, after working on your trilogy, how have you changed? What do you think would have been your biggest shift?
Wow. First off, I no longer know that Carlo at all. I find that always disturbs people a little bit. When I was like, I have no clue who that person was anymore. I kind of used to know them, but it's no longer me in some ways. And I think that speaks to a lot, like how much I'm no longer even tied to that idea of who I was, or what. And then it was to a certain extent because as a result of that change, as a result of not necessarily trying to fit in one box or one shape and trying to hold that box and shape anymore. So I'm now more living the fluidity of it, in a much more dynamic and adaptable way. And I believe I feel that freedom in everything I do, in the vulnerability that I'm able to present, in the conversations that I'm able to have, um, in just the relationships across the board. And I think it leads directly to the impact that I can create as a result of that. So yeah, I don't know that person too much to speak about. If I want to say that's how dramatic the change has been, and if I want to put it in tangible terms, you can think of let's box it in this engineer introvert who didn't necessarily speak out loud or even speak their thoughts or whatever. And I think then paint a picture of who I am today in a public figure sense. Almost on camera every single day, both publicly in writing and visually. And that's just the outward facing things, not necessarily the internal things that have changed.
Wow, very, very impressive. The picture you painted, from and what a journey. And I'm fully with you. Sometimes, yeah, of course, most of the time we don't notice ourselves, but sometimes people we haven't seen for a longer time, they kind of mirror it to us, and then you see in a way, yeah, how you evolved and developed. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that. Yeah. And because I think leadership is also a way to choose whom you want to be and how you want to show up, and that's why I think this is so important. And this brings us also to your second book, right? And where it's all about leading teams or being part of a team, and all this cultural behavior. And I think, and for me, this is a very important aspect as I'm, developed the concept of energetic leadership, so that you're leading with your energy, with your values, what you stand for, and people kind of feel it. And I think that this concept is so important because, in a way, it's now with all this AI, you're coming to that in your third book, right? And there is so much more about connection, and I think that's what that's my idea. When I heard about your book, you say it's not being about observing, having this KPIs, but more about truth and transparency, but more kind of living it. And so what do you recommend for increasing truth in a team, or not truth, trust in a team, and also, how do you need to bring this in as a leader?
A great question. I think that's probably, the second book, and with that specifically, I think that's the most tangible way of, seeing the outputs or the outcomes of that, and, that relationship. Because I do believe the trust, the transparency, all of those things, which we observe, we don't necessarily build. And I think that's the distinction that I always like to make, is you see them as part of the collective. You don't see them as an individual skill set, because they are a relationship between one or multiple people. They're not like a skill you're building on your own in a way. And that's why one of the key themes in the second book is absurdity. And I think it's a really interesting thing in how it shapes team dynamics, and how it breaks this notion of process and performance optimization, which used to basically suggest that that's how you create very well collaborative working teams. And how that works effectively is honestly, but a certain level of lightheartedness and into whether the dynamic of the collaboration or the conversation, and even a level of absurdity of not taking things too seriously. Because the more serious are the ideas or the thoughts, etc., more they are stringent and absolute, and more they don't invite more collaboration. So you end up stuck. So you end up going into team dynamics where it's no longer about the team, but it's about the individual agendas that each person in that team is trying to achieve. Yet, if you throw in a wrench in it, if we want to put it in a certain way, you throw a little bit of a whimsy, a little bit of lightheartedness, a little bit of absurdity, even in that dialogue, you create a space for others to start connecting, whether the ideas, no matter who's right or who's wrong or who has like the correct formula for the most part, but that creates a space. And on that space, you can start building or you start observing a lot more transparency, you start observing a lot more trust between the teams and all of that. That's why I think, we say the best conversations or the decisions end up happening in happy hour or the dinner table. You talk in the meeting. But why is that? Like, that's where you're a little bit more relaxed. You're like a little bit kind of not taking things as seriously in that context. And you end up actually performing better as a team as a result of that. But what if we bring that kind of type of relationship into every conversation? We're not coming in and saying, very dogmatic about our opinions, or very taking them, even if they are serious topics, but taking them with a certain level of, absurdity, if I want to put it that way, because that creates that space, creates that opening for others to even collaborate, to be heard, for others to listen in, all of that good stuff that we all aspire to have and rarely see in our teams.
I really love your aspect of bringing this energy of dinner table or after work drink in a way where you discuss in a different environment certain things, and then come up with different ideas. But I think, at least that's the way how I see it is, because you're speaking about teams, right?
Yeah.
But each team, is set up by individuals.
Okay.
And and I think it's also important, if you have a good team, let's say that they work together in a human and productive way, and that there are not these personal hidden agendas, as you mentioned, but nevertheless, and you have this diversity, but nevertheless, they're all individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And what I experience is people just want to be seen and noticed as individuals. Of course, they are part of a team, but they're individuals, right? And so how do you integrate this in your leadership approach about trust and transparency? Because I think they want to be seen not only as this person working there, but as a human in total.
Well, I think it's a really good point, and I don't believe it's an either or. Like when we talk a lot of the times around the team and the collective, we're almost as if saying we're dismissing the individual, and when we're talking about the individual, we seem to be dismissing. And I don't think it's an either or case in this one. I do believe actually, the individuals shines when they can be all day who they are, present in all who they are. And I don't think you can be present all who you are without a certain level of vulnerability to a certain extent, a certain level of safety without safety. Like the tension like automatically exists if you are really present in everything you are. And I think that's the best representation of individuality is the level of authenticity that you show up with, which allows both like the team dynamics allows it to happen, that you don't feel, you're being judged or whatever. But that requires a lot of individuality, because at the most authentic version of you, it's the totality of who you are. And that doesn't come easy. So that is as much as an ingredient as of, creating the space for the team to operate correctly. If anything, the team will operate. And when I say about trust and transparency, and I'm not always talking about as well people like being completely honest and all of that stuff. We always kind of reduce authenticity to one of these dimensions, and I don't think that's true. I think the truth is sometimes a very fragile thing that needs to be taken care, like needs to be tended for, and doesn't always need to be optimized for. In the sense, I like being authentic to who you are in that moment might be that any truth you try to share might be too much, and that you actually speak it as best as you can without necessarily kind of speaking it directly. And this relationship of direct and indirect, I think a lot of the times we've optimized for one, assuming that that's the only path forward, while kind of ignore the other elements, the other dimensions of it. Because we've lost a little bit this sense of ambiguity, this sense of in-between kind of conversation. But the truth is, there's so much that happens in between, not on the edges, not where everything is absolute and clear. And I don't want it to sound like very like philosophical in nature, because really it's not. It is very tangible. It's like, it's like coming to a meeting and, saying everything, whether it hurts someone or not, like bluntly, while saying it to the truth of the matter, the reality, in both how you perceive it and how it reflects on you. And I think that's a very vulnerable position to be in, versus as just like, kind of being nonchalant or don't care about it. I think there is a nuance there in that, differentiation, which I do believe is very important, yet a lot of the times is lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good point with your example, and but it's kind of, it's difficult, on both sides, always to find the right way, and probably we need to experiment with it and and open as a leader, open up yourself and give others the room to do the same. But yeah, in a way, you mentioned it, in a way, it's trust. So can you, say the three things? What do you think is most important to create this trust that is so needed?
Mm. I think when we talk about trust, I think trust lives in the relationship. Like, I don't think trust lives in the isolation. So what are the things which live in the relationship? And that's the things which we need to focus on. So I think one important one is listening, like, because if there is no listening, um, there is no way to connect. So and by listening as well as not this notion of active listening, etc., but it's just listening without trying to judge or respond, listening without anything really, just like listening as pure as a format as it goes. And by that creates a opportunity for like surprises and things that may be uncomfortable, or things that may be like, all of those are part of this package of listening. And that's why I think the second part next to it really closely is trusting yourself almost to be as vulnerable as you need to be, while at the same time, like it's really a paradoxical relationship here. You have like, you're trusting in yourself enough to open yourself for things that you don't want to hear, but at the same time knowing that you can hear them and it will be okay. Like, I think it's a very hard, because that level of safety that your mind is going to always kind of try to fight back against is going to be like a super important things in building that trust. And the last thing I would say, there is a component to this which I believe is to a certain extent, like, the people usually you trust the more is the people that around them you feel the most energy, or you feel the most alive in a way. And for that to happen, I believe it is as well, you are it's not like you are trying to perform that. I don't think you can perform it, to be honest, but you are just like have this intense drive and passion and like kind of boiling sense in you, and you bring that out, or you bring it to anything. Even if you're not even saying anything, you can bring it just being there. I think it happens as no differently. And I think that component becomes really critical, because then you're kind of sharing energy, you're kind of switching, you're kind of, since in this case we're talking a lot about energy, I think you end up projecting energy almost that it kind of demands a reciprocal relationship and the dynamic, and then that kind of build up more of the trust.
Wow. I love this aspect of sharing energy. Yes, I really like it. And I like your three points. I just wanted to ask you about one thing that I see in a way is for many very important. Yeah. And this is appreciation. And in a way, also in combination being seen and acknowledged and and appreciated.
Thank you so much for listening to The Founder's Truth, a space for opening your mind to new possibilities and thinking. One question to reflect on is, how much energy are you spending holding a shape of yourself that no longer fits?